The notification pinged on her phone exactly at 2:14 p.m., and I watched through the window of the Oakview Motel as Elena's face went from a playful post-coital glow to a mask of pure, bone-chilling terror. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, wrapped in a thin white towel, while Marcus, my supposed best friend, was still laughing about something in the background. Then she looked at the screen of her phone, and the color didn't just leave her face. It was like her entire soul evacuated her body. I pressed send on the second notification from my laptop in the car, and I watched her hands start to shake so violently she dropped the device onto the carpeted floor. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand why that specific notification destroyed her world, I need to take you back to where it all started. Back to when I thought our marriage was the one thing in this world that was actually unbreakable. On the surface, Elena and I were the it couple in our circle. We'd been married for 7 years, lived in a restored Victorian in the Heights, and had a routine that felt like a well-oiled machine. We were both high achievers. I'm a senior architect and she's a regional marketing director, so we stayed organized. Our secret weapon? A shared digital calendar. We called it the master plan. Everything went in there. Gym sessions, grocery runs, dental appointments, and our Tuesday night connection dates. If it wasn't on the calendar, it didn't exist. Our friends used to joke that we were the only couple they knew who scheduled their spontaneous moments. We'd just laugh, sip our wine, and think we were better than everyone else because we were so in sync. The first crack didn't feel like a crack at all. It felt like a glitch. It was a Thursday in late October. I was looking at the shared calendar to see if Elena would be home for dinner, and I noticed a block of time from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. labeled Strategic Planning Off-Site. No location, no client name, just a gray box. When she got home that night, she smelled faintly of something sharp and woodsy, not her usual floral perfume, and definitely not the smell of a conference room. I mentioned it, and she didn't even blink. She just said the HVAC at the satellite office was acting up, and they'd spent the afternoon in a stuffy basement room. That should have been my first warning, the way she didn't look at me when she said the word stuffy. But what came next was so much worse. Over the next month, the off-site meetings became a weekly staple. They were always on Thursdays. I'm a man of details. It's literally my job to notice when a beam is 1/8 of an inch off, and I started noticing the inconsistencies. One Thursday, she said she was in the North End, but I saw a charge on our shared credit card for a gas station 40 miles south. When I asked her about it, she claims she'd lent her card to her assistant, Sarah, for a supply run. If that was all I found, maybe I could have let it go. Maybe I would have chalked it up to her being overwhelmed. But then I decided to do something I'm not proud of. I went into the history and settings of our shared calendar on the desktop version. I noticed a hidden layer, a secondary calendar that was synced to hers but wasn't visible on the main interface unless you knew exactly where to click. It was titled Project Alpha. When I clicked it, my heart stopped. Project Alpha wasn't a marketing campaign. It was a mirror of her entire life, but with different names. Where the main calendar said late night at the office, Project Alpha said M's place. Where the main calendar said yoga retreat, Project Alpha said weekend in Sedona. And the most sickening part? Every single entry was color-coded in the same blue I used for our anniversary plans.
And that's when I realized this wasn't just a one-time thing. This was a choreographed, long-term performance. She wasn't just cheating. She was using our master plan, the very thing that symbolized our partnership, to facilitate her betrayal. She was hiding the devil in the details of our daily life. I spent the next week in a state of cold, vibrating rage. I'd look at her across the dinner table, watching her talk about her day, and I'd feel this physical weight in my chest, like my ribs were slowly collapsing. I found out who M was 3 days later. I followed her after one of her strategic planning sessions. I expected a stranger. I expected some hotshot executive from her firm. What I didn't expect was to see her pull into the driveway of a small, nondescript house owned by Marcus. Marcus, my college roommate. Marcus, the guy who stood next to me as my best man. Marcus, who had sat at our Thanksgiving table just 2 weeks prior, laughing with me about old times, while his hand probably brushed hers under the table. I sat in my car 2 blocks away, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I wanted to storm in there. I wanted to break things. But I knew exactly what I was going to do. I had to be patient. If I confronted her then, she'd lie. She'd spin a web of, "It just happened once," or "We were just talking." No, I needed her to see that I knew everything. I needed her to understand that her perfect system was the very thing that would hang her. I spent the next 3 days acting completely normal. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I kissed her goodbye in the morning. I asked her how her meetings were going. I even suggested we add a spring break trip to the calendar. She had no idea what was coming. She was so confident in her little hidden calendar that she became sloppy. She didn't realize that as the administrator of the shared account, I could see every edit, every timestamp, and every location she pinned. The trap was set for Thursday. I saw the entry for Project Alpha pop up on Tuesday night. Oakview Motel, room 212, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. I took the day off work. I didn't tell her. I drove to an electronics store and bought a high-powered lens for my camera, and then I went to the Oakview. It's one of those places that rents by the hour, tucked behind a strip mall. I checked into room 214, directly next door, at noon. The walls were thin. I heard them arrive. I heard the laughter. I heard the sound of a wine bottle being uncorked. Every sound was like a hot needle in my ear. I sat on the edge of the polyester bedspread, my laptop open on my knees, my phone in my hand. I wasn't crying. I was beyond crying. I was in that strange, icy place where you're so hurt you become a machine. I waited until 2:14 p.m. Based on the sounds through the wall, I knew they were drifting off or resting, the aftermath of their betrayal. I opened the shared calendar. I created a new event. I set the time for right now. I titled the event, "I See You in Room 212. Then I added a location, the Oakview Motel, check your front door. Finally, I hit the button to invite guest. I added Elena's email. And then for good measure, I added Marcus's personal email too. I hit send. I stood up and walked to the window, pulling the curtain back just a fraction. I could see the reflection of her phone lighting up on the nightstand through their window. The silence from the room next door was instantaneous. It was the kind of silence that has a weight to it. I sent the second notification, an update to the meeting. The new title was, "Don't forget to tell Marcus I'm taking the house."
That was the moment I saw her freeze. She was sitting there, as I described, the phone in her shaking hand. Marcus leaned over, his face squinting at the screen, and I watched the realization hit him like a physical blow. He scrambled back, nearly falling off the bed. Elena didn't move. She just stared at the phone as if it were a live grenade. I didn't wait for them to come out. I walked out of room 214, stepped onto the balcony, and walked the 3 steps to their door. I didn't knock. I didn't kick it down. I just stood there. When the door finally opened 5 minutes later, Elena was dressed, but her shirt was buttoned wrong. Her hair was a mess, and her eyes were rimmed with red. She saw me, and her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked like she was choking on the air itself. Marcus was behind her, trying to pull on his shoes, looking everywhere but at me. He looked pathetic. This man I had trusted for 15 years couldn't even meet my gaze in a cheap motel hallway. "David," she finally whispered. Her voice was thin, like paper tearing. "David, I can explain, it's not what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like, Elena," I said. My voice was incredibly calm, which seemed to terrify her more than if I had been screaming. "It's 2:20 p.m. According to the master plan, you're supposed to be in a strategic planning meeting. I just thought I'd join the session. Am I late for the presentation?" She started to reach for my arm, her fingers trembling. "Please, let's just go home. Let's talk about this at home." "Home?" I laughed, and it felt hollow in my chest. "The house is already being appraised. I called the locksmith an hour ago. Your things will be in the garage by 6 p.m. It's on the calendar, Elena. I sent you the invite for move-out day about 30 seconds ago. You might want to check your notifications." Marcus finally spoke up. "Dave, man, look." I didn't even let him finish. I looked him dead in the eye, and the sheer intensity of the rage I was holding back must have shown, because he actually took a step back into the room. "You're not part of this conversation, Marcus. You're just a footnote in a very expensive divorce. Enjoy the room. It's paid for until 4. I turned back to Elena. The color had never come back to her face. She looked gray, aged 10 years and 10 minutes. She was gripping the doorframe so hard her knuckles were white, her eyes darting to the parking lot, then back to me, looking for a way out, a lie that would stick, a loophole in the evidence. But there were no loopholes. I had the screenshots of Project Alpha. I had the GPS logs. I had the photos of them entering the room. I gave you everything, I said, the calmness finally cracking just a little. I gave you my trust, my time, and a life that people envied, and you used our shared life as a camouflage for this. I was lonely, she sobbed, the classic, pathetic excuse. You were always working, and the calendar made everything feel like a chore, David. I just wanted to feel something that wasn't scheduled. Well, I said, stepping back toward the stairs, you're going to have plenty of unscheduled time now. I've deleted the master plan. From now on, you'll have to manage your own disasters. I walked away. I didn't look back, even when I heard her call my name from the balcony. I heard Marcus trying to quiet her down, probably worried about the scene she was making. The drive home was the quietest 30 minutes of my life. I didn't play the radio. I didn't call anyone. I just sat in the silence of my own car, realizing that for the first time in 7 years, I didn't have a single thing on my schedule. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. I didn't give an inch. When her lawyer tried to argue for alimony, I produced the logs of Project Alpha. It turns out, judges don't particularly like it when you use a shared family resource to coordinate a 2-year affair.
Marcus moved 2 states away. I heard he lost his job shortly after. I didn't care. Elena tried to call me a few times, sent a few long, rambling emails about healing and closure. I didn't read them. I just marked them as spam and deleted the notifications. Sometimes I still catch myself looking at my phone at 2 p.m. on a Thursday, but I don't feel that pit in my stomach anymore. I don't feel the need to check a location or verify a story. I sold the Victorian house and moved into a modern loft downtown, all glass and concrete, with no hidden corners. My life isn't color-coded anymore. It's messy, it's unpredictable, and sometimes it's a little lonely, but it's real. And honestly, there's nothing on my calendar for tomorrow. And for the first time in my life, I'm perfectly okay with that. Elena thought she was the master of time management, but she forgot one thing. You can't schedule a lie forever without eventually running out of time.